Hi, and welcome to another session of July's reading workshop with LearnUp Centers. I'm here with Steve Tatum, Reading Director of LearnUp Centers and founder of the Tatum Reading Program. My name is Steve Hagler. I'm the Executive Director of LearnUp Centers. We're in week 2 of using the code. This is our second session. It's an open forum with maybe Steve doing a little bit of a conversation around some of the things he's noticing, but mostly this is a place to answer your questions. Next week, we'll get into unlocking reading and comprehension, and we'll start talking about how to do the certification process. Again, remember, this is mostly about it's an asynchronous class, so a lot of work you have to do beforehand. Coming to these sessions to help answer your questions. There is a Facebook group to meet and your fellow participants, also to find partners to practice with. We really think it's important that you find someone to work with and to practice these concepts, and particularly if you can work with a student, that would be awesome, because that's when this all begins to click as you start to use it. Also, as Randy pointed out earlier, it's important to mute yourself, otherwise the Zoom call will focus on you, and we want to focus on whoever the speaker is who has the microphone. So make sure you're mute, even after you've asked your question, mute yourself and then come back on when you're ready to speak. I will leave the conversation chat open during this time, because it's usually a good place for people to ask questions and get some answers, unless Steve is presenting on something in particular. There's 4 ways to support LearnUp Centers. We are developing more tutors, so we have the capacity to work with families as we move into the fall 2020 school year. More and more students are going to need reading help, so we're here to do that. You can become a tutor for us, reach out to us, and we'll start you through that process if you're interested. Spread the word. One of the things I was reading in the chats and the comments is that, wow, everyone needs to learn about this. One of the big lifts for us is to get this methodology and approach out to the world, to the reading associations, to the educators, to the administrators, to let them know it's something that's valid and worth having their teachers and other educators go through. So the more you can help us spread that word, the more our reputation will spread and the more people will learn this way. You can also support us by donating at learnupcenters.org. We do have a scholarship fund both for students to come here who would otherwise not be able to enroll in our programs. We do have a goal of a 1-for-1 for every paying student. We want to be able to support a student who otherwise could not attend our programs. And we also want to create a teacher fund that will help you educators, come in and work with us. And Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. All right. Well, today, many of you watched JT, the lesson with JT, and JT's, that lesson ended up being like perfect. Considering, I don't do it with him but once a year maybe. You can see how much he retained. And we pretty much followed the schedule as we did it. We kind of hit all the points of the schedule. So let's go back real quickly to review the idea of the lesson structure versus the concept plan, okay? Okay, so here is the lessons book, and this is the reading checklist, which is we use with Advanced. The back cover of the lessons book has the straight checklist, which we do with starts 1s and 2s. But when we have kids at start 3, the reading goes ahead of spelling. So we have a reading checklist and a spelling checklist. It's best for a lot of you when you first start to get a start 2 or start 1 child to go through this sequentially. That's an easier way to learn. At our clinic, our teachers don't have that luxury because we'll get a variety of starts, but it's much easier to get a start 2 and go straight in a row in the program rather than moving ahead on the reading versus the spelling. But this is pretty logical that if a child is testing here, you'll give them credit for what they know in the reading, and we'll get caught up on the reading, and then we'll pick up the spelling later. You'll also notice letters here, A and C and B and E, and these correlate with the comprehension skills we're doing at the concept. And I will get into that more next Tuesday about what you're doing. But I'll start with just the basic. Our most basic comprehension is it's kind of a beginning of paraphrase. We use sign language to help tie down this information. Paraphrase is this. It's like making a snowball, and it's a sign for condense it, paraphrase. And for paraphrase, we're looking at who or what did what. And there I'm just trying to see at the very basic, does the child have a basic understanding in a sentence of who or what did what? And if they don't have that, that puts us at the very beginning of comprehension. Okay, the second thing is I look for pronouns. Do they know what pronouns refer to? I mean, this one child read this entire book and thought she was talking about a dog when he was talking about the main character, a woman. So, I'll have kids trace what the pronoun refers to. And then what transition words do, like and, but, in conclusion, what those transition words do. And that's kind of the start of where I'm looking. It's kind of almost syntactical in some ways. Do you know the who or what did something? Good. What's this pronoun refer to? And, oh, there's an and. What's that mean? The idea continues. There's a but. Hey, there's a difference. It's going to change. There's an in conclusion. We're going to get a summary. So I'll be talking about that next Tuesday. But these correlate to various comprehension techniques, which are described on this page. So here's A, paraphrase and prediction. Here's B, C, D. So that's what this means with the letters. And now this is different than my intense comprehension program I have for ESLs and kids on the spectrum and nonverbal learning disordered kids. That's a more in-depth comprehension. This is comprehension that goes along with the phonics program and correlates with the phonics program. So we'll get in that more in depth, okay? Now, I mentioned that we have the lesson structure. Page 22. This is the most important page. We have the lesson structure, and we have the concept plan. The concept plan is like concept 2, but the concept plan needs to go within the lesson structure. Since we are beyond concept like 13, and I think we've done 14 and 15, the long vowels, that means we can do this whole plan now. For spelling of sounds, I'm going r, very quickly, and the child's pointing. And then I give the definition of suffixes. Show me without, show me past tense. And they have to point and say the suffix. And then if I'm reviewing walkers, since these are more telling you what the reading level is. Color is to help you with reading. Walkers means, hey, straightforward, 2 vowels go walking. Yellows fits what you know, but something else. Red, stop, something's a little strange. So with these, since this is under spelling symbols, I have to say we're going to review the walkers now. We're going to review the yellows. We're not looking at the best bets for spelling now. We're just going to tell me what are the 2 that say A, what are the 2 that say O, and yellows, which one says ow and oo. So we would be having the walkers by now that we'd be adding in the spelling of sounds. Reading, we read the sounds, teacher points, you read it, and then we'll point to some suffixes and they'll just read it, and then I'll ask, is that a bully or not, to a couple of them, just to remind them. Slide drill is C and G, where you take the C and you slide it down. That's been taught, and that's done daily now, where they go k, s, s, k, k, or g, j, j. New concept, this is where you can save time. If you've taught, let's say, the R family, and you think the kids have it, the next day you can just take the concept card for our family and have the kids quick teach it to you. Or you can have the board and have the kids quick teach it. Whenever it says review, that means I have the child teach it. And this will take a minute versus your introduction will take 5 or 6. So if I'm reviewing bully roll, I might have run plus and rush plus ing, and the child will just explain it to me, and that takes a minute. Notice I then save about 5 minutes here, okay? Spelling of syllables, I now put the syllable I start with and which one I end with. That way I keep track. Reading the syllables, which one I start, which one I end. If I'm at diagnostic syllables, I usually do that in place of the reading. Now that's what I'm doing with my advanced guys now. I work with them twice a week, and we do diagnostic one syllable and multi-syllable. Every time I'm in, we do that in place of this. I'm trying to get speed of word attack now. And we do backside of the board. Remember, for older students, upper, middle, above, but definitely junior high. Junior high, high school, I start backside of the board first day, no matter what, because they look at that as, hey, this isn't kid stuff. It's been a big breakthrough. So this is a breakthrough. Spelling words, which word did I start with? Which did I end? Or in place of that, am I doing sentence dictation in place of spelling words? Sight words, I might click and put which ones I am doing down here. I might be adding the OU goofy hyena words. Reading, the book and the chapter. Timed readings I do each session with Beat the Clock. Beat the Clock, remember, we're working on prosody. So if it's just a straight narration, I'll just time them. But if it's dealing with emotion expression, I will model it first, then they read it like my model, and then I'll time them. So it's a little different in our Beat the Clock. And then at home, they're doing the 1 minute timed reading. Now the 150 words are these words. These make up 50% of everything you read, write, and spell. And these I'm just kind of covering. If the child has a big trouble with a word, I'll do orthographic mapping. But basically, we're reviewing these, and I try to get, if the child's pretty severe, 4 words. If they're not so severe, maybe 8. And I'll yellow mark their problem words. And the next day I'll time them to read those as quick as they can. And then we do Beat the Clock with it. So the first time they may do it in 15 seconds, then 10, then 8. I only do a minute with that each day, and I do that before I do reading. Once they're doing pretty well, I'll add some more yellows. And so then I'll time all the yellows that they have. So they may have 15 yellows. So this grows. Short and sweet. Dr. Shaywitz says to do this because these fit a half of everything they see in their reading. Interesting thing, half of these things are phonetically accurate. You know, not, and, a, in, is, that, it, for, on, are all phonetically accurate. But we want a child to be able to say that whole word and not sound it out. If they're sounding it out, they don't have the sight word. They're not using the fusiform gyrus. Again, our whole goal is to stimulate the fusiform gyrus. Okay. Here is the diagnostic syllables that I do with my guys each time. And we'll warm up by reading the syllables across up to where they're at. And then I will time them on the level they're at. We're here now. I'm timing them at level at walkers and yellows. And this is tough. We're getting tough stuff here. Notice the reds, I put real words because for these kids, these pretty much are nonsense words for a lot of them. But I put real words here for the reds. This is the explanation of the lesson. So then in writing, initially, if a child can't write, I basically will be their secretary and I'll say, let's brainstorm a couple words. Give me a little summary of what happened. What's the who or what did something, and I will write. Eventually, I will try to turn over a sentence to them to write and let them use invented spellings. And keep in mind with spelling, I only correct what I've taught. So if I haven't taught our family and they misspell that, I don't worry about it. So my goal initially is to start getting something down on paper. By this level, if you're at diphthongs and walkers and long A and O, you should be now writing 3 or 4 sentences for summary. That's our goal. Okay. I'm introducing with my advanced kids mapping, where I'm going to be talking about how to write an essay like a hamburger. This is explained in video 4 on foundations. A topic sentence is like the top bun. Supporting points are like hamburger and cheese and tomatoes, and the conclusion's the bottom bun. And then I'll show them how to map that, and get them to write a little essay. So we're breaking that in. So I'm teaching that during my writing component. I'm setting up more time for that. Okay. All righty. So this is pretty open-ended questions. Remember, there is no stupid questions. In fact, I wish if you think you've got one, say it, because that's the same question nobody else is asking. Okay. So let's just open it up.
Hi, Stephen. It's Lori Chambers. Sorry, I don't have my video up. Can you
Hi,
hear
Lori.
me?
Yep.
I had a question about what you do for BD differentiation.
Sure. Okay. There's first, let's talk about that. Kids with dyslexia have what are called material strengths. That means they can rotate objects in space, and they're extremely good at it. That's why they're so good at Legos. That's why they're good at anything which is hands-on. Well, that's one of the reasons they tend to rotate B's and D's and P's and Q's more. That's just what they do. Okay. So it's somewhat symptomatic. Another thing is they're reading less words. They don't have a much higher incidence of that than the normal population, but since they're reading less words, it appears more frequently. Now, the simplest way is hold up the bed, which is, you got your B, E, D. So they're holding up bed in front of them, and B and D. And that one is pretty effective, but D. And that's the easy one. Now, okay. There's another one more involved. Would you like to know it?
Sure.
It's related to handwriting. Okay. All right. So. All right. B is a line and a ball. D is a ball and a line, or a ball and a bat. That's how I call it. I don't care what you call it, but in general, if they're taught B is a line and a ball, and D is the balls first and the bat, I will then have the child say B, 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 B. Notice your mouth forms a line. B, B. And notice B has the line first. B. So you have a line sound for B, 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 B. Now let's look at D. D, your tongue rolls back. D, D. Lindemuth calls it a tongue tapper, where it taps the roof, and it causes a rounding of the mouth. So here, the ball or the round comes first. Okay. So D, 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 you have the round first. But so what I'll have the child do is when they look at a letter, say, well, it's a line, make your mouth into a line. But okay, now we've got the ball, make it a ball or make it a circle. And so before they even start, I'll have to formulate their mouth as a line or a ball. Then once you do that, what's recommended is you'll have practice of like rows of 10 of these. And they will look and see the line first. So they'll make their mouth in a line and go B, B. Ball first, D. Line first, B. Ball first, D. Line first, B. And they'll do that regularly. Just a quick read of lines of 10 of those on a daily basis for a few minutes. So that is another method that's a little more involved. Okay, I've had mixed success with that, but it's good. If you teach printing that way, or you acknowledge that the printing is that way, they've just got to know that with the B, the line is first, and with the D, the ball is first. Okay, so that's another possibility.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay, other questions? All right, I'll ask one. All right, Steve, we've been dealing with long vowels. What's the deal with long vowels and what does it mean spelling versus reading? Okay, good question, Steve. Now, on the left side of the checklist, you have reading concepts such as closed syllable. When you see the word bat, you're reading a closed syllable. You see the vowel tag. A vowel tag is something you use to break down words for reading. So basket, you're swinging the word in basket. Vowel change, you try raven, not a word, you change it to raven. So it's a reading technique. The R family, you are learning how to read words with R family. With diphthongs, you're learning how to read words with diphthongs. Now you're also learning how to spell them, but they're initially reading concepts. The spelling concepts are working with things primarily for spelling, like the hungry roll is not a reading concept, though it does familiarize yourself with the endings, the TCH, DG, ECK for reading, but it's primarily a spelling concept, just like the bully rule is. Long A, though it reinforces, or long E, long A, long O, though it reinforces the spelling of the long vowels, it's really a spelling concept. And what we're getting across is when you hear A, there's multiple ways of spelling it, okay? All right. Let me go to the board. So when you go to E, there's multiple ways of spelling it. Now, if we were a transparent language, like Spanish and somewhat the Dramatic, the Turkish, is that Greek? Some, I think, of the northern languages are more transparent where there's more one-to-one correspondence. Pretty much, this was all we'd have for spelling. The 15 vowel sounds. I, A, O, U, ow, oi, I, E, A, U, O, and that's it. Got it ringing in the curve. Okay. Again, the 15 vowel sounds are I, A, O, U, ow, oi, I, E, A, U, O. That's it. All these down here are different forms of spelling of these. And there's more than this. But I'm taking the most frequent because otherwise you'd be learning 1,000 different forms of variations of really weird things. I'm taking the most frequent forms. But if we didn't have this stuff down here and we just had this, we'd have a transparent language, which would make it much easier to learn to read, okay? So for spelling, I'm teaching them for A. Well, how do you spell A? Well, you spell it with an A and an open syllable. A consonant E when there's a consonant after it, and AY at the end because it has a tail, and then AI is the rest. It is the best before L or N. Later on, I'll learn EI, EY, and EIGH are the rest. That means they're not your best bets. And we're not going to, when in doubt, you're not using it. These words you got to memorize. These are when in doubt. So when in doubt, if a child's spelling essay, he knows best bet is ESS, ESS. A, it's at the end of the word. AY is my best bet. So we're teaching them an automatic way of spelling when in doubt. And again, once the word form area fires, he'll start remembering these words for spelling once the word form area fires. That's, again, our main goal. When it doesn't fire, they'll have to simply use the phonetic program and get as close as they can. And you can get pretty close on 85% of the words.
Can I ask you a question? When you just said the word essay, right?
Right.
And so why would they know to add the Y? ESSA could be essay, right?
Because all ending spellings have a tail.
Okay. All.
Right. So what for E, your tail is a Y. It's a downward tail. For A, it's an AY because it's a downward tail. For I, it's a Y. It's a downward tail. For O, it's an OW. It's an upward tail. U is an EW. It's an upward tail. So again, I've simplified this. At the end, use a tail, except in learn words, which I talked about yesterday. Those are words where the AW and OW, which are tails, go in front of final L, E, R, and N. Those are a group we teach separately. And the kids will get that because that's clearly, their kids really get this tail concept. Like for instance, between these two, usually this is at the end. Between these two, this one's usually at the end. Between these two, this one's usually at the end. Between these two, this one's usually at the end. That's a lot of stuff. They get that. So the learn rule, which is different, they get because it is a major variation of something they're comfortable with. So now one of the techniques I have, which is in the R family concept, at the end of the R family concept, I have 3 columns for open, close, silent E. And as soon as you teach long vowels, I want you to either use that page or on the internet, have the kid draw lines either on his Google Docs or on a sheet of paper to do the spellings. And let me show you what I mean by that. So we go to the R family. There we go. And we have the columns. Long vowel, silent E, tail, and the rest spellings. This is where you'll find the columns for long E.
Pardon me. We're still seeing your.
Okay, sorry. Thanks. Okay, so this is page 70 or page 65. And notice that we have the long spellings of E that you can use to dictate here. Let me show you what that looks like. It tells you to go back page 61, and there they are. You can dictate words from any of these 3 columns. It's not dealing with 1 syllable words, so you're primarily not dealing with these at this point. You're dealing with these 3 columns, okay? These you can do at any point. This is your best bet. In a 1 syllable word, this is really close. 51% of the words are EEs, 49% are EAs. They're really close. So we have some memory work we got to do. The reason I put these long E, which is a complicated one, first at concept 9 is because EE and EE comes up a lot early on. I mean, look at all these words. You know, these are all regular words you see constantly. So that's why that's moved up. But anyway, for the columns, I can dictate from this began, extreme envy, and they will write them either in their notebooks, they just draw columns, or here they type it in. So let's say the word refuse would go here, R-E, and it could also go here under silent E. Now, if I wanted to deal with long A, it's on page 71. So I go to page 71. And there's my long A words for the open A consonant E-Y. And so I can dictate those here. Radar goes here. Relay goes an open syllable and AY because it's an open E. So I start using multiple vowels. So this tells you the pages I can go for the vowels. But this is a great review activity to deal with the long vowel spelling. I want to get that down automatic to the kid. Open syllable, use the vowel. When in doubt, use the vowel. Relay, well, you could put an R-E-E, an R-E-A, an R-E-I, an R-I-E, an R-E-Y, but guess what? R-E is by far the best bet. And if you went down here to Caesar's Casino and put money on it, on the E, and it was on a roulette wheel, you'd be really rich if you put it on E for an open syllable. That is your best bet, okay? That's what we're saying. That's your best bet. If there's a consonant after it, your best bet is to add an E. That's your best bet, your silent E's. And ends, no brainer, use the tail. By the way, this is much easier for kids than it is for teachers. Kids love this because it's the first thing they can grab a hold of for a lot of words is tails. They really like this. Okay. Okay. So we have our spelling, which again is on that right checklist where it's primarily, if you were to ask me what's the meat of the spelling is a few rules. By the way, there's tons of rules in Orton-Gillingham. I've compacted them into picture rules. Why picture rules? Kids who have dyslexia have narrative strengths, story strengths. So the hungry rule is a story. It's not a sequential rule that follows procedures. Procedural is one of the issues kids with dyslexia have trouble with. So you have the hungry story, and the more you get into it, the better. And then you have the bully rule story and the walk away story. So I like, you have those basic stories. You have the CY change, I before E, some basic rules, and the long vowels. Those are your primary spelling generalizations. And then you just have the spelling of the phonetic sounds. So like if you're at our family, you have to know how to spell ER and AR and OR. But you have these two things going on, the reading, which goes ahead of the spelling. Initially, for a child who knows nothing, they go together and they're very reinforcing together initially. Okay, great. Other questions? If not, I'll keep asking myself hard ones.
I have,
Okay.
Real quick, what did you, how many vowel sounds? 14, 17?
15.
15. Gotcha.
15. I'm going to recite the Big Dipper, and you'll see it. That's 5.
Okay.
O, ow, oi. Okay, that's 5. And then we have the long vowels. I, E, A, U, O. That's it. 15 vowel sounds. You have the R family controlled, but they're not vowel sounds. And if that's all we had, Christian, we'd have a mighty easy language. But our problem is you had the Anglo-Saxon words came in 500 AD into England with all these vowel teams that described household things like and farm implements, street, sleep, geese, boat, reap, load, sheep. All these easy concrete words were loaded with these vowel teams. And that's why first grade and second grade reading is so hard, is because they're loaded with those words that are concrete, like boat, like soap, like toe, like rain, the concrete words with the teams. By the way, as you move up higher in reading, you don't even have to deal much with those for reading. You have to deal with Latin-based words with prefixes, roots, and suffixes. So like my Pep Baker book, which I'm having for upper readers, I'm not even dealing with the diphthongs in that. I go right into tag, change, and syllable knowledge at the end, and we're reading multi-syllable words because those kids who are reading at that level are already beyond vowel teams. Vowel teams are primarily in first, second, third grade words. That's why Lexile scores do not help us out. Lexile scores, which are used in schools, have all the vowels included. So if I have a child and my program is only halfway through and you give them a score that has Lexile, that has all the vowel teams in it, they're not going to do well. They'll do really well at the end. So Lexile scores are great for the beginning of my course because they'll bomb it. And then at the end, they'll do really well. But as you try to use it in the middle for progress, it requires all the teams, which our kids don't know. We start out in my program with one-to-one correspondence because that's the easiest way to learn. And then we get into one-to-two correspondence, like OO has 2 sounds, EA has 2 sounds, that kind of thing.
Lexile, what is it? L-E-X-I? I've never heard that word before.
L-E-X-I-L-E, it's a system of scoring books, and they'll have Lexile scores for these books. And I've had teachers say, well, boy, we're in the program and the kid's not doing well. I said, of course she's not doing well. Your Lexile scores have O, A, E, I, E, I, G, H, and your kid is working on 1-syllable words. But at the end, our kids know all the teams, so they do fine on it at the end. Pretty much, our kids will do well on any test on the end, So.
I had a question about the long OU, like shoulder, because it's not on there. So shoulder, low, sole.
Good. You answer that question.
I did.
No, go ahead and answer it. I want us to think through it. Okay. What about it? I'll help you. What about that? For OU, we teach the OW sound, high frequency.
Right.
And we teach the OO sound like soup and root. Okay. And then you have words like what?
Sole, shoulder,
Uh-huh.
boulder,
Uh-huh.
pour.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many words, too many sounds. Yeah.
Those are sight words. They're not high frequency. Like each one, like of that, there's 3 different sounds there.
Right.
So I include that under sight words, the high frequency ones. I teach that in sight words. Keep in mind that our goal is to stimulate the word form area. And as the word form area is stimulated and they're reading, they're going to start recording words naturally. Okay. Now there's the variability phenomenon when you're reading and sounding out words. In other words, if you're sounding out a word and you're not sure what it is, let's take shoulder. He played football and heard his shoulder. Okay. Now, there's a variability phenomenon of what word can go there. If you're not sounding it out, could be shingle, sharp, shooter, you know, Shazam. It could be all kinds of things. But by you sounding it out, shoulder, you have now narrowed the variability of what could be there with context. And with context, there's very few words that sound like shoulder that would fit. He heard his shoulder. So what happens with good phonics is you have the combination of phonics with the variability index that by sounding it out, you've reduced the word that can go there contextually. And good reading is a combination of both. Now, don't misread this. It's not contextual reading. It's phonics that reduces the variability of what naturally will be there in context, if that makes sense. Okay. That's a high-level concept.
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Hi, it's Wanda. I don't have a camera on my computer. I'm sorry about that.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. I was wondering if you had any tips for working online for younger kids.
Working on what?
Working online with students. So I've been trying out on 3 different kids.
Yeah.
And I found that they find it really frustrating.
Right.
And I'm having a hard time. 2 of the kids, it's a problem because they don't have a camera either, so I can't see them. But I'm having a hard time getting them to do everything as you want it done. So for example, concept tracking, I have a little 7-year-old and we're working on
13 is what we should be at 7, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, he's in boot camp because when I got him, he couldn't read anything and he was still sounding out each of the letters like like that. So he's been doing really well with the Wizimo board, but I can't get him to say the sound as he replaces a letter. And I'm just wondering how awful is that, or any tips to try. And I've demonstrated it for him several times. He's a little wriggly 7-year-old who'd rather be outside in the sun. And he's catching on, like he's made some progress, but I'm just wondering in terms of your program, how big an issue is this? And if you have any tips to help get him to do the actual process.
That's really a good question. And it's one with multiple answers. One with younger kids, I prefer that they have the board and that they actually get a board at home and they're moving the board and they're watching my board. And I prefer that for starts 1s and 2s.
Okay.
The second thing is I require the parents to be there to get going with the Zoom and the Wizimo at the first couple sessions, or you're going to pull your hair out for 5 or 10 hours. You know.
Oh yes, I have been doing that.
So the parents need to be there. I mean, it'll drive you nuts. I mean, I had to learn stuff real quick when the Zoom and the Wizimo, and I've had all the problems you have. Now, what you're saying, it sounds like it. So when you're saying the sounds, you're saying that they can't see you? Or you
no, they can see me. I can't see them. And so it's a huge issue, but I just thought I'd start with you somehow. But I can't see them in the I can't build the relationship online as I want to, because
I mean, you mean personal relationship?
Yeah.
That's tough. And
yeah.
I mean, that's really tough because I look at our clinic, I hire at the clinic for relationship.
Yeah.
You have to pass all my tests, but I'm looking at somebody, will this person get a kid going and make the kid feel comfortable? So yeah, that's the tough part about this. And you know, the more with, especially start 1s and 2s.
Yeah.
You know, the more you can maybe at the initial point have a few meetings with them, the better. But anyway, that aside. Now, okay, so I've got the Wismo board and I got this antsy kid, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
when I say "b," can you see? Can he point to anything?
Yes, he can. His sounds are actually quite good.
All right.
So it's just when we're trying to do concept tracking, and he
Right.
can do it. He's actually saying the sounds, but he's not pointing to
Okay.
the letter as he moves the letter
Okay.
off the
Right.
board. Yeah.
I got a solution for that. Okay.
Okay.
So then you point and he's fine, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is not, first I have to make a disclaimer. This is not ideal in my program, yet I have used it with a situation like yours, okay? So I go to my regular tracking and I'll say, okay, let's say we're dealing with blends. And I'll say, all right, we're gonna pull out the word famp. Okay, give me that first sound. So I'm doing it. Whoops, I need to. Now this, for some reason, is causing me problems. See, this is the kind of thing.
Steve, you're hitting the eraser, not the.
Oh,
Yeah, you need to hit the little square. Yeah, there you go.
But this is a problem I had the other day. And so what I have to do often is get out of. Pardon me?
Yeah, my husband will see me actually.
So I have a backup.
Okay.
I have a backup. I use my board when this happens. So I always will have my backup board. So let me get that. This is frustrating. And that's one of the things I find out is always having a backup. Because as you know, none of this stuff goes perfect.
Oh, yeah, no, we've been trying to do it on a phone. We've been trying to do it.
Okay. So here's my backup board, okay?
Okay.
All right, now, so I say the word is damp, and I'll say, give me the sounds, and the child will go, D.
We can still see your Wismo board.
Okay, I'm sorry. D, A, M, P. Good. All right, dimp. And I wait for her to echo. If she doesn't, I say it again, dimp. She goes dimp. Then I point. I just become her pointer. And she goes D, eh. I make the change. M, P. And then I move it. I move it back, and she says the word dimp. And then I say, good, let's make it dip. And she's got to go dip. And then I point, D, eh, P, dip. Good. Now make it dep. And she's got to say dep, then D, eh, P. So what's happening? She's segmenting and doing it. I'm just becoming her finger. See that? Okay. Dep, make it dept. Dept, D, eh, P, T. Make it bept. Child will go bept. B, eh, P, T, bept. Now, I use this approach the first few times I work with a child who needs step tracking to show them how to do it. I control it. And then I wean over and give them control. But when I have a child who's all over the place, you know, moving stuff and just a mess, then I will go ahead for that tracking and I become their finger. Does that make sense? Who am I talking to? Is it Pam?
You're talking to Wanda.
I got muted. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's doing it. It's just he's not like he'll go, it'll be bept, and I'll say, make it dept. And he'll say dept, but he doesn't move the B
No,
as
but he
he's.
doesn't have to with this approach.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's what I was wondering. And he is showing progress. So I was just kind of curious. Well,
Now
how?
here, I want you to be him, okay? You be him for a moment, okay?
Okay.
All right, we're gonna make it dept. Echo. Dept.
Okay. Dept.
Ready?
De, yeah. De, e, p, t.
What's the word?
Dept.
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 Let me hear it.
Dept.
I want to hear the sound. I'm pointing to it.
De, e,
Okay, we're changing it to I. D, I.
p, t.
Dipped.
Dipped.
We're making it dip. Echo.
Dip. De, e, p.
Dap.
De,
Dap.
a, de, a,
Nope,
p.
dap.
Dap. De,
Good.
a, p.
Okay. See how I'm doing it? You have no
Yeah,
trouble doing it.
yeah, that would actually help a lot. Yeah,
All right.
okay, thank you.
Let's do a 1 second sound cleanup, okay?
Oh, yes, thank you.
All right, with me,
I'm
ready?
Canadian, it's hard.
No problem. You're actually almost there. You're ahead of the game.
Thank
Ready?
you.
B.
Yep.
With
B,
me. B.
b,
B.
b,
D.
d,
G.
g,
J.
j,
L.
o,
M.
n,
N.
n, p, p,
R.
r.
Nice R. S.
Thank you. S,
V.
mm,
W.
w,
X.
x,
X.
x,
It's not
X.
X. It's a KS. X.
x.
There you go. Y.
Yeah, yeah.
Z.
Z,
I.
I,
E.
e,
A.
a,
A.
a,
Ah. So your prime problems are these. So these would be for the next week, what I'd be focused on with you. I'd be going B and you'd be going B. So let's review these. What's this? B,
b,
D,
d,
G.
g.
Good.
Okay.
Now that's what
Thank
I do with
you.
a kid. As quickly as I clean with you, that's what I do with the kid. When I say clean it up, that's what I mean. And then when I do spell and read sounds, I make it clean. But that's how fast you can clean up kid sounds, you know. And instead of doing a sound a day through 8 linkages and a month later you've taught the consonants, I clean them all up like that.
Yeah, I've been having problems with that too because the kids think they're saying the sounds correctly, and then when I correct them, they get all miserable on me.
So how are you correcting it?
Well, I'm saying I'm repeating it, and then I'm asking them to repeat what I've said, and then they come back and they just say, I just said that.
Oh, I have a kid who does that.
Yeah.
That's understandable. They see they're not hearing a mistake. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, there's times, you know what I do at times? I'll say, you probably did. I'm just getting old, you know.
Yeah, well, that's what I say. Anyway, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I don't really worry about it. Okay, other questions?
You know, Steve, I've been kind of, I guess, struggling with this, you know, why use nonsense words, but that was a very good example of my interpretation of this was you're using nonsense words like DEPT, dept, to get to your goal, right?
Yeah.
You're moving through, you're not limiting your possibilities and you're showing them how to get to their goal of dip or whatever.
Well, and Christian, the literature, the research is overwhelming in doing this. Now for first grade, it's overwhelming for segmenting. That's where you go it, and blending, that's fit, overwhelming. But for higher level, It's the manipulation, like we're doing fit, make it flip, make it flat. That is crucial for upper level kids all the way up through high school, that they can do this advanced tracking. So the research is conclusive that that's the missing piece. And in fact, in studies, they find remedial programs that don't do what we're doing here get maybe a 2 to 5% increase in a year, whereas programs that do this kind of thing get 12 to 24% yearly change. Big difference. Okay.
Steve,
Yeah.
this is Nikki again. So my question for you is, when you just said what you said with the research, is it specifically that doing the step tracking and concept tracking with nonsense words is the way to do it? Or does the research also say that doing the step tracking and concept tracking with real words provides the same benefit? Because I'm doing reading simplified. I used to do reading simplified, and Marnie Ginsberg will talk about if your child is really behind or really is having trouble, each time they see a word is a chance for them to map it orthographically. So you should get real words in front of them as much as possible. So can I achieve the same goals with tracking with real words and then get that student more?
Keep in mind with a young child, every word is a nonsense word until they sound it out. What I'm trying to do, Nikki, is this, is with this tracking, because I do the whole package. See, here's the deal. I clean up the sounds in isolation for both spelling and reading. Then I apply it tactically in a nonsense word where they can only depend on the sound, not any sight word memory. So any kid that has any sight word memory, it's undermined. So I deal flick, make it flack, make it fliss, and they have to apply the proper endings, etc. Then for reading, they have to apply it. Then I immediately transfer that to real spelling of words, then real reading of words. So it's a combination. However, if you wanted to make a tracking that has real words, or for the younger kids, it should work just as fine. The main purpose of nonsense words is, especially with older kids, so they're not using their memory, then they're not applying it.
Yeah, because my 4th grader has no word memory. We did PEP. I mistakenly started her out with the very first of the PEP of the adventures. She couldn't get the word PEP the 4th time on the same paragraph. So she's got 0 word memory happening. So I think there's 0 danger of her having it memorized or something. So if I do tracking with real words, it just gives her a chance to get some real words maybe in her memory.
Well, you know, Nikki, I just overly wouldn't worry about it. I just follow the plan for this reason. She's not going to get real words in there until her word form area fires, period.
Right.
And you're not going to fire the word form area unless you do certain things. When you're going flip, make it flist, make it flast, that actually stimulates the word form area. And so it's the whole package that produces the change in the kids. So if you wanted to, go and make a real word tracking sequence that makes them change all over, that would be fine. But that's a lot of work, and it's not really what my point is. What I'm trying to do is through the whole program, the repeated readings, the whole thing, stimulate the word form area. Because once that fires, the problem with sight words starts to disappear naturally. In other words, when your word form area fires, we used to think you needed 12 to 15 looks at a word to remember it. We now know, based on how many words, like by 2nd, 3rd grade, kids have 3,000 words. Well, in order to do that, there must be seeing a word once or twice and remembering it. So that's why we're trying to stimulate the word form area by all these techniques. Now, if a child's hung up on the nonsense, you could use some real words using the same principle but you will be getting the nonsense, because you'll have, let's say you go with draft, which is a real word. Drift is a real word. Brift isn't, but you want to change there. Brit isn't. So eventually you're going to be dealing with nonsense words. You see what I'm saying? Whereas with the tracking I have, you can move all over and make the changes. So the program is a package.
Right. And your nonsense syllables are often real syllables that could be in a real word. They're not all just fake. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. Good question, Nikki. That was very thoughtful.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Shannon.
Hey, Shannon.
I have a 9-year-old son who is dyslexic, and he confuses words often. So like if a little girl's name is Braylon, he calls her Bulgaria. If we
all of them do that. No
okay,
problem.
yeah. If my friend's name is Betsy, he calls her Wendy. Like he only hears the Y or something.
Right, exactly.
When I have him read through the sounds, he can recognize all the sounds and he says them correctly.
Right.
But then when he goes to write them, he gets really frustrated and confused between FR and TH. So the fr and the or the. And I'm not, and the other ones are the SH and the CH. And I don't know if it's a memory or if maybe he needs to write it out more instead of verbalizing it, but he just really struggles with it. And it's those sounds all the time that he's confusing.
Yeah, well, the TH and the F are natural. The only difference between the two, okay, which one am I saying now? TH or F?
I can barely hear it.
Okay. You got to watch my mouth. So if he's trying to spell Frank or thin, it's watch my mouth. Frank.
Okay.
It's a lip cooler. Cool your lips. Thin, my tongue's out. Okay. He's got to watch you. So that's where I'll say you have thin. Watch my mouth. I want thin. Okay.
Okay. That's interesting. And he doesn't, my husband's right here. He doesn't often give eye contact. He's very shy. So I wonder if that's the part he's missing. So,
well, you can give it to me for a second. I'd say, look at me for this. You got to look at me for that.
Well, no, he'll look at me. That's fine. He just won't look at his teacher or a tutor or any other adult.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the club. These kids have masks they put on, a little strange type things that you got to get off, but he's not doing anything different than anybody else. The key thing, we got to make sure our sounds are clear. Okay. So I'm going to review sounds with everybody again right now because I hear a lot of uhs on everybody and it's natural. And in the course I review. So let's kind of go with me.
The last two people were from Minnesota and Canada. That doesn't help.
One of the best phonics programs I know, Project Reach from Canada. So you're capable of learning them. Okay. All right, with me, I'm going to go ahead and put this up. By the way, if you're in my class, I'd be working with you all individually on your sounds. Almost nobody has their sounds. And I'm talking teachers who've taught phonics for years are going buck, duh. And what's even funnier is famous phonics teachers who do their books on Audible, they don't check the Audible person when he does the sounds and they all do them wrong. And I'm going like, so the teacher in Audible says, no, you got to segment the words. Okay, ready? Like bad is ba, ah, da. And I'm going, geez, you just didn't check her. You know, that's terrible. It's not ba. All right, so let's go ahead and review these. B, not ka. Okay, ready? B. D. Almost an after it. D. Versus TH. G. G. J. Same as it. For spelling, initially, this is your best bet. When they learn I, E, or Y, they have to use this in front of I, E, or Y in the beginning or middle. Oh. Yes, but most people have trouble with Now, people who have trouble with but will do the p here, but it's popper. This is one my Canadian did great. When in doubt, you do the key words for it, like itch, itch, echo, apple, or axe, it's good to get kids to look up because an AW are going to be looking below. So anyone with this trouble, it's especially in Canada, it's a big issue. I have them look up for like look down for ooh, oi. Those regularly. Okay. So out of time, any burning desires or questions that need to be made?
I have a burning question. And I need to show you something on screen share.
Okay.
May I? Alrighty. You got to allow me to. You have to unscreen share.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I have this is in the lessons book. And my question is it says, read the first 3 words. And I don't know which 3 words you mean. Do you mean, now I'm going to end up losing that. Do you mean the first 3 words from, that just jumped too much. Hold on. That wasn't good. I was on the right page. All right, so it says read the first 3 words, and then below there is like a smaller list. I don't even know what page I was on. I had it all ready for you.
Stephen, you're muted.
Yes, Stephen's muted. That's why he's not answering me.
All right.
All right, hold on. I got to find the page again. I think it was page 60 I was on.
Okay.
So it says there's different lists, and I don't know if you're going across or down, or I got to get to it. Yeah, page 60, I think I was on. Oh,
there you go, long. Okay.
There we go. All right.
All right, stop for a moment.
Yes.
Notice it says advanced students may begin at start 4 using page 61. Now, I have said a couple times that an advanced student is anyone with a heartbeat and breathes. Because this method, I use the discovery approach, is not working nearly as effective as this technique I developed by accident, which is direct instruction. So then because of that, I actually spent a webinar last Wednesday going through how to do each of the long vowels through the advanced approach. Were you there, Randy, for that one?
Probably.
Okay, so that webinar basically showed it. It's now, and we now are using that for the video for the long vowels. And that's where we don't do these first 3 steps, which is discovery. Could you move the page up to the long E words?
So you're skipping the first 3?
Yeah, well, we're going to the advanced step, which says go to 4. So we go and we read, and I advise you to read the webinar or the webinar on long vowels. But that's where we go began. What kind of syllables? B, it's open. E. How about became? It's open. What are we using in E? And we find out all these are open. And then we find these have a E when you have a consonant, and these have a tail. And then we summarize, and
so
we
you're
talk
not,
about the rest.
So you're giving up on the 1 through 3 steps?
I'm not giving up on it. I found a better way.
Okay. It's just, I just kept saying read the first 3 words, and I didn't know what.
That.
Ignore it. Okay.
It's now officially, by the way, I constantly change this thing. So when I re-edit it, that's going out. What happened is my last editing, I hadn't totally broken from it. And so I put it at the advanced level. But after working with kids, there's no comparison. It's so easy. And you can use flashcards in place of the list if you want, put these on cards. But it's direct instruction, and it's just an easier way to learn it. So therefore, in the course, people are not watching that long E video that you guys were watching. They're watching the webinar long E, long A, long O, which is now the way we're doing it. So what you're doing is you're doing the advanced approach. So go back up to the lesson. You're going to the advanced approach, which is starting with step 4, maybe again it's step 4. Teacher goes to list on page 61 and teaches the best and rest, beginning with 5 open syllable words, then 5 silent E, then 5 final sounds that have tails, and points out the rest. And then teacher goes to the magnetic board and shows best and rest. That is what we do now for the long vowels.
Got it. No wonder why I was confused.
Yeah, and that was, it's a transition. This program is always changing for the better.
Definitely.
And that's the beauty of not having $1 million in materials with a big company. If I see a change that needs to happen, I'll get it. And what's nice is now that we're on the internet and we have these, those will be available, you know, the changes. But so that's how we do it, Randy. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Any
Steve,
other?
Hello, Steve.
Oh, sorry,
All
two
right.
people.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a question, Steve. I had to pop out for a minute now, so I'm popping in, so maybe you covered this. But when I came back in, I noticed that you were using the TATM reading board as opposed to Wizimo. When do you use both? Okay, and you don't use one for something you haven't found more effective. And what format did you use? How did you create the TATM reading board? What's that? What did you
have accessibility to that? I'll have to ask Steve. We can get you. Here's why I use both. One is I use the Wizimo because that way the kid can take control and move things much easier. I will use my board as a backup if the Wizimo freezes or has problems, which is what just happened. So I have a backup. I go to my board. I also, the Wizimo board, which I'm going to show you here. The Wizimo board for the back side doesn't have all the endings and prefixes. It has most of them, but not all of them. So this is where I move it over and I have the back side of the board. So we can do syllable work and introduce these endings and prefixes. So I can go ibble, because I approach this just like I do sounds in the front, ibble, and they'll go ibble, and ubble, and they'll go ubble, and shun, and ation, and then I can point and they read it. And then I can go to spelling the syllables, pull out inductible in, oops, I gotta use this crazy thing, which is not working for me today for some reason, okay? So that's when I go to my board, when that does not work. See, that's when I use a backup.
So it's good to have a backup then.
Yeah. Okay, and then after I've made sure, by the way, these we don't have to teach to say them. They're phonetically controlled. This is a closed syllable, these are closed. So I'll have them read, like if we're group 1, I'll have them read these 4 and these roots, and then I'll teach these endings. But I'll say pull out X, rupt, a bowl. Great. Then we will make it, and they make it imruptible, and they'll go imruptible, just like the front. Imruptible, make it imruptation, imruptation. And then I'll move to a couple endings, a couple roots. I'll end up with 6, 7 words for spelling and reading. And kids love this. This is why with older kids, I go right to it. But anyway, that's why I do this. I have my backups. Because like you, things don't always work. I've also ended up doing my entire plan on the iPhone, you know, when nothing worked. That's why I use that board. Great. And
got it.
Okay. Well, I think we're about out of time. I have tutoring coming up.
Steve,
Yes,
I have one question.
sure.
So I am tutoring an 8th grade girl.
And while teaching her the rules, she works very nicely on that. Means she follows the rule and she knows what to write. But then when it comes to writing, she forgets the rule. Means she don't remember and she messes up all the things.
Right.
So
Normal.
what shall I do?
That's normal. See, kids, if she has dyslexia, there's another additional problem that kids.
Yeah, she is dyslexic. Yes.
It's a cerebellum problem. And the cerebellum problem has to do with procedural knowledge and your ability to maintain rule knowledge and procedures. About 50% of kids with dyslexia have that. That's where, like, you teach something, you think you got it, and then it's gone the next day. It's this inability. It's one of the reasons they also have trouble with math facts. It's systems and procedures and that kind of knowledge they'll have trouble with. So that's what you're dealing with. So you can, number one, when you're right, say, remember the bully and hungry rule. You can, when she's done writing, have her underline every word with a suffix and make sure she's applied her rules. So she would go by, like in running, and underline it. And then I'd say, did you apply your rule? Oh, no, it needs a bodyguard, you see? But I don't expect them to apply it while they're writing. It's when we proof it that I expect them to apply it. So I would do this. After she writes it, I'd have her underline every word with a suffix or every word she's not sure she spelled. And then I'd go through those words and review the rules that way. And then words that you haven't taught her yet, like if it's our family words, I don't worry about it yet. But that's how I'd approach that, Shaylee.
Okay. Okay. And one more question.
Sure.
My daughter is 5 years old. She'll be going to kindergarten this year. So while reading, at times she reads from left to right, but at times she goes from right to left.
Yeah.
When she makes words, she writes from right to left. Yeah, she goes like this.
Yeah, it's called stressosymbolia. It's something that a lot of kids have up to age 5 or 6. It's called twisted symbols, stressosymbolia. It's what a lot of kids do because their hemisphere dominance isn't well established yet, and they'll go right to left, left to right. It's if it stays, you know, through first, second grade that it's an issue, but it's not a problem. The key thing now is I'd be working with her not on letter names, but on sounds. That's the key. Work with her on sounds. And, you know, you could even get at some point into pre-boot camp and start the cab with her. But it's, you know, the key thing is working sounds with her. I am going to be.
I started with the boot camp, and there I found this, that ab. So she first wrote B and then A.
Right.
At. She writes T and then A. And then I correct her. So she gets frustrated that I am writing it.
Wait a minute. What do you do now? What's the word?
At.
At. And what does she do? I can't hear you.
She's writing the letters in the opposite direction. Instead of B-A, she's writing A-B or, right? Is that correct?
You're on mute.
Yeah, you went on mute. I don't know why.
Yeah. So she writes T and A. If I say at, she'll write T and then she'll go with A.
Okay, here's how you solve that. Okay, the word is at. Ready? Ah. At. Good. Your next word is bat. Ready? But you segment. Now, initially, another thing you can have her do is do this. At with her fingers. At. Now write that. At. Next word is it. Ready? It. Let's do the it. And have her tap it out with her fingers. And have her follow the sequence of her fingers. It. That's another way you can do it. Or you can push blocks. But what you can do to help her go in sequence is to break down the word slower until she gets the idea of left to right. Okay, your word is Ready? Good. All right, next word is ip. Now, what's the first sound? I. Good. So just keep breaking that down so she doesn't make a mistake and you can compliment her rather than have to correct her. Okay?
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Going once, going twice.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys Thursday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
And Steve.
Bye. You're welcome.
Hey,
Thank you very
everyone.
much. This is so awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
you very
you.
much.